Victim blaming is one of those terms that we've all universally agreed represents a negative concept. Something you'll hear right-wingers and left-wingers use with equal fervor and eagerness, just depends on the context. If you're somehow unfamiliar with the term victim blaming, it's when the victim of a crime or some other wrongful act is held partially or completely responsible for whatever befell them. The term is most commonly used in instances of rape. You know, the idea that the victim was, what they were wearing or how they were conducting themselves or the promiscuousness of their lifestyle is ultimately what led to their rape. And if you use a tactic like that to make it partially the victim's fault, the idea is that it feels less like it's the actual rapist's fault. So it's a way of shifting the burden of blame from the victimizer to the victim. And the most recent example from the right wing is their defense of journalist Andy No, who was attacked by Antifa when he tried to cover a massive demonstration in Portland, Oregon. Many on the left noted that No had been a longtime antagonist of Portland Antifa, that they had in fact threatened him with violence if he showed up at that rally. And therefore, by going, the left said, well, he was hoping to be attacked. He was hoping to make himself a beacon of right-wing outrage. He was hoping to go on news channels like CNN and tell his story with his lip all a-quivered. Oh, I was beaten. And the right responded to the left saying that stuff by saying, well, you guys are just victim blaming, which, of course, they were. It was one of those issues that I didn't even want to say anything about because it's very hard in the current climate to present an opinion that doesn't align perfectly with the viewpoint of the tribes. If you try to say something outside of the left-right identarian bubble, both sides will go fucking completely batshit haywire and they're going to put you into their enemy tribe by default, This is an effective way for them to shut down any and all discussion that doesn't play into their two competing but somehow cooperative narratives. I'm sure a lot of people are silenced by this status quo. So on Andy No, I think both sides have an argument. If there was a huge rally of violent thugs that had openly threatened to kick my ass if I showed up at their rally, guess where I'm not going to be under any fucking circumstance, right? So did Andy No put himself into a situation where he knew he was likely to get attacked by violent thugs? Well, absolutely. Is he milking it for all it's worth? Yeah, that was the point. But did he make those thugs violent? Sorry, no, he didn't. Did he force them to be that way? No. Does he ultimately score the moral victory against them? Yeah. Because in doing what he did, he exposed them for being not only violent thugs, but hypocrites of the highest order. Now, I happen to believe that we're all hypocrites and that hypocrisy gets kind of a bum rap, but that's another subject for another video. In fact, that's going to be chapter 5 of my book, The Order of Chaos, which you can listen to the introduction and the first 4 chapters right on my YouTube channel. Link to the playlist down below. But when the hypocrisy, reaches a certain level, of, I'm a member of an anti-racist, anti-homophobic organization, but I just beat the shit out of a gay journalist of color for daring to disagree with some of my political beliefs. That's a level of hypocrisy where everybody universally, at least it should be universal, where everyone just rolls their eyes and says, that's fucking ridiculous. You're fucking ridiculous. Ultimately, if I was the referee in the battle of the tribes, I'd have to give this point to the right. Because even if you grant that Andy No is a publicity hound who knew exactly what he was getting into and planned this whole thing, he still exposed Antifa for the violent, unthinking thugs that they are, and put them in a position that is indefensible, unless you're going to say that we've reached the point in American politics where political violence of this magnitude is completely justified. And if that's true, why don't we just stop wasting time on skirmishes and just kick off Civil War II? All I ask is you give me enough time to build a bunker so I can sit it the fuck out. But this video isn't about Andy No or the ever-present and infinitely exhausting battle of the tribes. No, this is about victim blaming. Was the left wrong to do it in this instance? No. Because even though Andy No does win the moral victory and did expose Antifa as he no doubt set out to do, I think it's important to differentiate an innocent victim who was minding their own business from an instigator looking to make a point or achieve some manner of social engineering. This is regardless of whether or not the point is good. So let's step away from Andy No. That story stinks too much of politics for people to look at it objectively right now. I can already feel some of you out there getting flustered because your tribe loyalty has been in some way threatened or besmirched by the introduction of Nuance. So let's throw away everything I've said in this video up until this point. Let's just throw it in the fucking trash and start over. Okay? Okay. And before we continue, I'd like to remind you really briefly of three things. One, I haven't had a video monetized on this channel since April, so if you become a patron or make a one-time donation via PayPal, it is appreciated. Links are down below. Two, I am 1/3 of the hosts of Deep Fat Fried, a podcast here on YouTube that you can find also linked down below. And three, if you have a product or service or channel or whatever that you want to see promoted, I'm always happy to shill your shit. For a reasonable rate. So now that that bullshit's out of the way, let's talk about something uncontroversial. Like, I don't know, rape. The thing about rape is that while it's universally viewed as evil and wrong, somewhere between 31 to 57% of women, depending on the study, have fantasized about being raped. For 9 to 17% of women, once again, depending on the study, this is their primary sexual fantasy. So for about 1 out of 10 women, the thought of being raped or coerced into sex is the hottest fantasy there is. Now, you may find that disturbing or exciting, or you might find yourself ambivalent about it or aloof about it. Whatever your reaction, you should take note of what journalist Ellen Scott said in her November 2017 Metro Co-UK article on the subject of rape fantasies. She said, "It's incredibly important to note that while rape fantasies are common, this does not mean that women secretly want to be raped. There is a huge difference between acted out role play, imagined scenarios, and real life experiences. No one asked to be raped. No one deserves to be raped, and how common forced sex fantasies are in no way justifies unwanted sexual contact of any nature." Now, she is absolutely right about most of that. Unfortunately, though, not everything is so cut and dry in the chaos of reality, because while most women who have rape fantasies aren't even remotely interested in being raped in real life, some are. Hence the recent phenomena of rape baiting. You probably haven't heard of it. Hell, I'm a degenerate, and even I hadn't heard of it until a few months ago. Rape baiting is the process whereby women who want to get raped put themselves in risky situations and try to lure men into raping them. They do this through how they dress, through teasing, through hanging out alone in seedy places full of liquored up men, dropping hints about how drunk they are and how they're probably not even gonna remember what's going on tonight, etc. And if their self-reported results are to be believed, many have successfully elicited rapists to prey on them. However you feel about these activities, it's pretty clear that this raises some difficult questions. If a subset of women can willfully engage in a style of dress and behavior that increases their likelihood of being raped, then it becomes difficult to say that style of dress and certain behaviors are not factors in who gets raped to begin with, which is an uncomfortable thought, especially to many victims. The idea that something they did might have been the difference between being raped or not being raped makes them feel as if they are responsible for what happened to them. But as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't. Whatever motivates a rapist to rape, it's still ultimately their decision to do so. It's not the fault of the girl in the revealing outfit that a man chose to force her to have sex against her will. He made the choice. The man who walks alone at night through a bad neighborhood is not inviting robbery, but it's undeniable that he is a more appetizing target for those who choose to rob. The house in a high burglary area that leaves its windows open and house unattended isn't responsible for the burglary that's likely to occur, but certainly we can all see that certain precautions could have been taken to mitigate that result. The woman who is alone and attractive and inebriated is clearly a more tantalizing target for a rapist than an accompanied woman who is sober and dressed conservatively. Not to say that such women never get raped, because they do, they're just less likely to. None of these facts mean that we should excuse the actions of robbers or burglars or rapists. They're still accountable for their choices. And if such people did not exist, we could all live freer and happier lives. We would not need to fear for our safety when we're walking down the street at night, or fear for our property when we leave it unattended. We wouldn't have to worry about our bodies being violated when we enjoy a night of fun on the town. But such people do exist, and we therefore take precautions against them, and all the other sorts of predatory humans who seek to harm or exploit us. And all of the protestations that the world should not be this way ultimately are fed into the meat grinder of, well, too bad, it is this way. But the existence of rape baiters makes things a little more difficult still, because if they want to be raped, then they're not truly victims, are they? And if they're not victims, then can what was done to them still be a crime? I mean, the whole point of their exercise is to get a man to have sex with them without ever giving consent. So from the perspective of the man, he is raping someone. He is having sex with a woman who did not consent to sex and is resisting sex. He doesn't know that she secretly wants it, although maybe he does. One of the cliches about rapists is like, hey, she wanted it. She secretly wanted it. Well, apparently, in at least some instances, the rapists are right. Imagine that there is a virtual world as convincing as ours. It's like the Matrix, and it's full of virtual people. They don't really exist, but they're very convincing forgeries. They seem to have all the attributes of real human beings, but they're not. They're programs who have no genuine awareness or self-consciousness. Would it be murder if someone plugged into this Matrix were to kill one of these human facsimiles? I don't see why it would be murder any more than killing a character in a video game. This is just a character with better graphics and a more convincing approximation of human emotion. However, what if the person plugged into this program didn't know that they were in a simulation? What if they fully believed that they were killing an actual human being? Would they be a murderer then? There's still no victim. But they didn't know that at the time they performed the killing. They made the conscious decision to knowingly and willfully end another person's life. The fact that it was an illusion, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, actually. Now, maybe you find the solution to this problem to be exceedingly simple. I don't. I've maintained for a long time that without a victim, there can be no crime. But the existence of rape baiters has challenged this notion in my head, because the men taking this bait are still making the conscious decision to have sex with a woman against her will, and that makes them rapists, but the person they raped secretly actually did want it and was in fact manipulating them into doing it. So they're not the victim in any useful sense of the word, and without a victim, what harm has truly been done? And if no harm has truly been done, then what is there to penalize? Do we punish the intention rather than the result? And should the rape baiters themselves be penalized, since they're trying to cause another person to engage in a crime, albeit through highly covert means? And if so, doesn't that come dangerously close to codifying victim blaming as an official policy of the justice system? Could it lead to persecuting or even prosecuting those who we deem did not do enough to avoid being victims of various crimes? Whatever your answer to those kind of questions, I think it's obvious that our ideas about victims and victim blaming are stunningly oversimplified. It's convenient to universally condemn the concept of victim blaming, but ultimately, we may just be fleeing from questions that we're reluctant to confront and unprepared to answer. The responsibility for a crime must always fall on the aggressor, the one who made the choice to exploit or victimize another person. That much, I think, is uncontroversial. We would be callous and idiotic to truly blame a victim for what's happened to them, but I don't think it's out of line to ask in what ways the victim could have avoided or mitigated the danger. It might feel like adding insult to injury, but it might also help others to protect themselves in the future. As long as society exists in any capacity, there's going to be exploiters and harmers out there looking for ways to take, advantage over their fellow human beings. Some of these forms of exploitation are even socially acceptable, especially in the context of big business. Like, look at the subprime mortgage crisis that most people view as having kicked off the Great Recession of 2008. It'd probably take a series of videos to explain what happened there, but there'd be argument over it, of course, but it's hard to deny that America's financial institutions behaved in a predatory manner by issuing junk loans to people they knew couldn't pay and didn't really know what they were getting into. This ultimately led to the ravaging of the entire economy. And based on the fact that no one went to jail, we can infer that it was all legal. And have we stopped them from doing it again? No. We're heading towards the same fucking financial cliff, like a fucking moron of a country that's just refused to learn its goddamn lesson. We've made no meaningful change to how those financial systems are regulated. So next time, it might not be the mortgage bubble. It might be the student loan bubble or the credit card bubble, but some bubble somewhere is going to burst, and it's going to drag our economy back over the cliff that we spent the last 10 years crawling out of. It's all rubber stamped by the people in power because they are not the brilliant visionary captains of industry that we've been misled to believe. They're parasitic predators who are interested in short-term gain, even if they have to slit America's throat in the process. And our elected representatives, who should care, who should be fighting to rein this stuff in, are in the pockets of the predatory parasites. So it's all legal. It's all fine. And when the economy goes belly up again, we, the victims, will once again be expected to bail out the pieces of shit who got us into the mess to begin with. I hope next time we say no. The form of that no I can't even begin to get into on YouTube, but you can use your fucking imaginations. So, like all my videos are, I know this was a rambling mess of disparate ideas just begging for someone smarter than me to tie them all together into something that resembles coherence. If I have to do my best to summarize what I said here, I want you to walk away with these few basic points, and that you're free to fucking contemplate and do whatever you want with. So, number one, the casual relationship between victims and victimizers is sometimes more fraught with nuance than current society allows us to comfortably contemplate. Two, there are at least isolated instances where the victim may themselves be a sort of predator and where the victimizer is perhaps truly victimless. In such instances, we must ask whether or not a crime has truly been committed. Three, there exist in many instances victimizers whose brutal and socially deleterious exploitations are recognized as valid business practices by those in control of our society and its laws. Four, we can ask questions about a victim's role in their own victimization without shifting the burden of responsibility onto them. Five, I didn't really make this point in the video, but I'm going to tack it on here at the end. The term itself of victim blaming may not be the most useful term in the world, because blame isn't really what we're talking about here. Neither is responsibility. What we're really talking about here is a concept that doesn't even seem to have a word in the English language. If the word existed, it would basically mean playing a hand in causing something, but bearing no responsibility for that which you caused. Like, if you back up your car and it turns out there was a cat under your tire and you run it over and it dies, you didn't intend to harm the cat, and you couldn't have been reasonably expected to know it was there, but what you did certainly did result in its demise. It's not your fault It's not your responsibility, but in a purely causality sort of mindset, yeah, you did cause it. Now look, there might be other points as well, but those are the main ones as I see them. Are any of them particularly important? I guess that's subjective or relative or whatever you want to say. But from my standpoint, we're always better off with a nuanced, complicated, frustrating understanding of an issue than a simple, easy, comforting, understanding of the issue. I'm reluctant to even call that an understanding. It's just an oversimplification. I hope that this video, whether you agreed with it to any extent or not, has at least forced you to think about these things in a new light. George Carlin said that trying to make your audience think is the kiss of death, so I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore, but fuck it, I'm doing it. I'm trying to make you think. Let me know if it worked. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the fuck out.